Imagine you get your paycheck, you promise yourself you'll save at least a chunk of it, but 2 weeks later, the account balance looks suspiciously low. Where did it all go? You didn't buy a yacht, you didn't splurge on a luxury vacation, yet somehow the money slipped through your fingers. Here's the surprising fact: most people across the world struggle to save consistently, even when they know it's important. And it's not just about discipline or willpower. There's actual science behind why saving feels so difficult. Our brains evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over long-term benefits. That's why grabbing dinner out feels more satisfying than watching numbers grow in a savings account. But here's the good news: once you understand the psychology and biology at play, you can work with your brain instead of against it. Today, we're breaking down the science of saving, why it's so hard, and what you can do about it. To understand why saving is tough, let's rewind a bit. For most of human history, survival depended on using resources quickly. If you had food, you ate it. If you had shelter, you used it. Hoarding wasn't always practical because scarcity was the norm. Our ancestors didn't have bank accounts or retirement funds, they had immediate needs. Fast forward to modern society, and suddenly we're expected to think decades ahead, saving for retirement, emergencies, or even just next month's bills. That's a huge shift in mindset. The idea of saving money as a structured practice really took off in the 19th and 20th centuries, when banks became more accessible and wages grew for working families. Governments and financial institutions encouraged saving as a way to stabilize economies. Think of the Great Depression in the 1930s, when banks collapsed, people lost trust, and saving became not just personal security but national policy. Programs like FDIC insurance were born to rebuild confidence. But here's the twist: even with systems in place, saving rates vary wildly. Some cultures emphasize thrift and delayed gratification, while others lean toward spending as a sign of prosperity. And individuals? We're caught between biology, culture, and economics. The science of saving isn't just about numbers, it's about how our brains, habits, and environments interact. That's why understanding the roots of this struggle matters. It's not that you're bad with money. It's that saving requires rewiring instincts that have been around for thousands of years. Let's dig into the science. At the core of saving difficulties is something psychologists call temporal discounting. That's a fancy way of saying we value immediate rewards more than future ones. If I offer you $50 today or $60 in a month, most people take the $50. Why? Because the brain's reward system lights up for what's available now. Waiting feels uncertain, even if the math says it's smarter. This ties directly to dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and motivation. When you buy something, new shoes, a streaming subscription, even a fancy coffee, your brain gets a dopamine hit. Saving, on the other hand, doesn't deliver that same immediate rush. Watching your account balance grow is satisfying, but it's subtle, delayed, and often overshadowed by the thrill of spending. That's why saving feels less rewarding in the moment. Another factor is decision fatigue. Every day, you make countless choices: what to eat, what to wear, how to respond to emails. By the time you're deciding whether to save or spend, your mental energy is drained. Spending often wins because it's easier, more automatic, and more emotionally gratifying. Saving requires conscious effort, and effort feels heavy when you're tired. Then there's social influence. Humans are wired to compare themselves to others. If your friends are upgrading cars, posting vacation photos, or dining out, you feel pressure to keep up. Saving, unfortunately, is invisible. Nobody posts a selfie with their emergency fund. That invisibility makes saving less socially rewarding, even though it's arguably more important. Economics plays a role too. In environments where wages are low or costs are high, saving feels impossible. When rent, food, and transportation eat most of your income, the idea of setting money aside feels like a luxury. This creates a cycle: the harder saving feels, the less people attempt it, reinforcing the struggle. But here's where science offers solutions. Behavioral economists have studied ways to hack our instincts. One powerful method is automation. When savings are deducted before you even see your paycheck, you bypass the temptation to spend. It's like tricking your brain, removing the decision entirely. That's why employer retirement plans or automatic transfers work so well. Another strategy is reframing. Instead of thinking of saving as deprivation, think of it as buying freedom. Every dollar saved is a future choice you get to make. That mental shift changes the emotional weight. Suddenly, saving feels like empowerment rather than sacrifice. There's also the concept of micro goals. Large savings targets, like I need $100,000 for retirement, feel overwhelming. But breaking it down into small, achievable steps makes progress tangible. Saving $20 a week might not sound dramatic, but over time it builds momentum. And momentum is key. Once you see progress, your brain starts associating saving with reward. Technology helps too. Apps that gamify saving. Turning it into challenges, streaks, or visual progress bars, tap into the same dopamine pathways as spending. You get that little thrill when you hit a milestone, making saving more engaging. Let's not forget the role of storytelling. When you imagine your future self, retired, relaxed, financially secure, you create an emotional connection to saving. Studies show that people who visualize their future selves are more likely to save. It's like building empathy for yourself decades down the line. And here's a fascinating twist: scarcity mindset can sabotage saving. When you feel like you don't have enough, your brain focuses on immediate survival. That tunnel vision makes long-term planning harder. Overcoming this requires building even tiny buffers. Once you have a small emergency fund, your brain relaxes, and saving becomes easier. Culture also shapes saving behavior. In societies where thrift is celebrated, saving feels natural. In consumer-driven cultures, spending is glorified. Recognizing these influences helps you resist external pressure. You can choose to celebrate saving in your own life, even if it's not the cultural norm. Now, let's talk about habits. Saving isn't just a financial act, it's a behavioral loop. Cue, routine, reward. If the cue is I get paid, the routine can be a transfer money to savings, and the reward might be a track progress in an app. Over time, this loop becomes automatic. That's how habits form, and habits are stronger than willpower. Finally, there's self-identity. If you see yourself as someone who saves, you're more likely to act accordingly. Identity drives behavior. That's why affirmations like "I'm building financial securities" matter. They reinforce the narrative that saving is part of who you are, not just something you occasionally attempt. So yes, saving is hard. Biology, psychology, economics, and culture all stack the odds against it. But science also shows us pathways to make it easier. Automation, reframing, micro goals, gamification, visualization, habit loops, and identity shifts, all these tools help align your brain with your financial goals. So, why is saving so hard? Because your brain craves immediate rewards, your environment pressures you to spend, and your history as a human species wasn't built for long-term planning. But here's the empowering truth: once you understand the science, you can design strategies that work with your instincts instead of against them. Saving doesn't have to feel like punishment. It can feel like freedom, progress, and self-respect. The next time you're tempted to spend, remember, saving is giving your future self a gift. It's building options, security, and peace of mind. Start small, automate where you can, and celebrate every step forward. The science explains the struggle, but it also shows the solutions. And when you put those solutions into practice, you'll discover that saving isn't just possible, it's powerful.